So, ladies and gentlemen, yep, we've managed to make an escape. We're back in the interrogation room. What a funny story. So, what we got going off today? Well, the markets this week, they've got lots of data coming out, man. We got earnings from Google, Tesla, and Tesla's the one that I'm going to be paying attention to because there are a lot of investors trying to work out if Elon is going to continue with this story about the American party. Where is his attention going? But the real attention right now, guys, is the story with regards to the Eurozone. Trump over the weekend has been toying with the idea of a 15 to 20% tariff on the Eurozone, but there's not been any developments, and the deadline is getting closer and closer. That is the 1st of August. What's going to happen? Another extension? That's what investors are probably going to be betting. In today's video, we're just going to break it all down and let you know what to expect going into the week. We're going to dive into the calendar. We're going to look at what's going on with cryptocurrency. I mean, is it altcoin season? Well, I'm going to give you a little example of why that could be the case. But don't go all in on this. But it does give you a good representation of exactly where money is going. So if you are new, welcome to Traders Reality, guys. My name is Tino. Let's get with the program, man. So we get it all started off with the story regards to what's going on in the marketplace. We saw the yen last night make a nice little flavorsome move to the upside only because of the elections. And usually when you see the yen going up, you can automatically tell that the dollar itself is starting to work lower. Going into the dollar dominance in terms of strength, you can see it's starting to work down towards this wick. However, I do have an expectation that dollar itself is going to be on the move to the upside, only because we are getting close towards what could be the cut in the Federal Reserve interest rates. Now, going into those rates, they are still keeping things the same as 4.25%, 4.5% on the actual meeting that we've got this month. So that's in 9 days' time. So make sure you're subscribing for this, because this is one of the biggest live streams that we have on this channel. But as we go into the September time, which is where a lot of FOMC speakers have been suggesting that that's the time when we're going to cut, the bets have now adjusted themselves. Why? Well, last week it finished on 45%. Now it's gone back down to 37%. And the only reason being is because there seems to be changes in what's going on. Besson only just a few moments ago has been talking about that inflation is low and we need to start cutting rates. Once we do cut the rates, the mortgage markets are going to have an influx of liquidity. That's going to be great news for the US economy. Going into the week itself, guys, we do have a lot of data coming out. If I just zoom into this so you can see clearly, lots of data is coming out this week, and it's all going to be on the economy. Now, if the economy does show resilience, technically the Federal Reserve does not need to cut interest rates. Why? Because the economy is sustaining itself at these levels. Granted, with the fact that the dollar dominance itself is showing strength, not so long though, but it's showing that strength. Naturally, investors are going to think, hold on, if we're not going to cut any interest rates, we need to start going elsewhere so we can get into fixed income securities. That's where the bonds come into play, which is why it's so important that we are understanding what the chances are for a rate cut. Now, you can see the US bond market is starting to get up towards, we can get close to that 100 mark, then happy days. But if the bonds are going up and the stock market is going down, that kind of gives you an idea that maybe investors are looking for a safer alternative because the interest rates are more than likely going to stay higher for longer. Jumping over into the stock market. So as we can see from last week, the NASDAQ had done a very good job of coming in with weekly volume above average. So if you just look to the bottom right of the chart, you can see that blue line right there. That is a bar of volume that shows accumulation from institutional investors. Believe it, at all-time highs, investors are accumulating. Equally, smart money is selling into that strength. Because institutional traders don't make them smart money. They are buying, they are consuming on behalf of who? Their clients. So you can see on the bottom right that we have had a lot of accumulation because volume has come in above average. Now, going into the week, we do have earnings this week. Today, we don't have anything important other than Domino's Pizza. Why is that important? Well, Buffett was loading up on that last week, so he obviously has a good expectation of Domino's, which is going to come in at the open today. But as we go into the week, it's really going to be on Google and Tesla and IBM. That's the heavyweights. Now, we have had some interesting news that Wells Fargo is naming Amazon, Google, and Expedia as the best tactical longs. Why would they be saying that? Well, it's because AI itself and the evolution of the way people behave when it comes to consumerism in terms of retail, they're always just going to be buying things, okay? Google, Amazon, you know what those guys do and you know what they provide. Now, if we do get a good reading from Google, it would then suggest to us that internet or consumers using Google, they're just happy with the way things are. Business is ticking over. So when we go and have a look at Google's price action, we can then say to ourselves, okay, then maybe Google could be giving us the idea that things are looking good. Going over to Google's price right now, don't know why it took so long for that. You can see it's just trailing high. It's not at all-time highs just yet, but you've got a massive gap over here between the 203 mark and, of course, the 192 zone, which I would expect Google to start attacking. And if we do get a good read on Google and their expectations of the future are looking good, granted, they're probably going to turn around and say tariffs are going to be a problem. However, overall, you can't kill investor sentiment given that we are at the all-time highs. Now, going into the week itself, ladies and gentlemen, we got cryptocurrency and there's so much happening, man. I don't know. I mean, look at this. Michael Saylor's strategy. It's the best performing stock in the NASDAQ today. Going over into MicroStrategy, you can see, look at that. It's the best performing stock, apparently. It's not taken out its all-time highs just yet, but it's doing very well to climb alongside our dearly beloved Bitcoin. What's the story with Bitcoin? Bitcoin is consolidating very well inside of this range. Now, let me get into the idea of explaining to you why and how you can understand if we could be in altcoin season. Just stick with me for a second. Going over into the order flow of Bitcoin, look at the difference between this. Can you see how there's not that many offers up here? The darker the pinks, okay, or more pink activity, which suggests sellers, as in offers, the more likely we're going to assume that price is likely to go higher. Equally, the same reason is down here with the green bars, which tells us that's where people are looking to buy because they bid when prices drop. Now, let me just show you something. Go over to Ethereum. Look at what's going on Ethereum right now. You can see, look at that, so much more of a difference on Ethereum in comparison to Bitcoin. What's that telling you? Well, it's telling you that investors are actively buying and selling Ethereum aggressively. Now, we have had some good news about Ethereum. It's clocked in $4.4 billion in inflows, and the ETP itself is doing great. We've had a lot of endorsement with Ethereum. Going into it, you can see MasterCard Insider predicts what comes next after big stablecoin turning point. That's going to be great news for Ethereum. And of course, you understand that when it comes to stablecoin issuers, you know that we're going to be talking about Circle. Having a look at Circle's price action for the week. Last week, it's done very well to close. Not so great, but it's traded positive. And you can see right now it's trading up 0.07% in the pre-market hours. But overall, I'm expecting Circle is going to actually start exploding very soon because the Genius Bill has come into play. It's all happy days, and everyone now is anticipating that moment in cryptocurrency. However, remember what I just said. When you go and have a look at the Ethereum order flow, you can see that investors are looking to get involved in selling and buying Ethereum. Bitcoin is not showing the same thing, which could then make you believe that Bitcoin could be stuck in this range, let Ethereum make the move, and then, of course, Bitcoin's going to start moving. Going over into Bitcoin dominance, you can see that is just bleeding out, but yet Bitcoin's price action is holding. Going over into the Arkham, still no development with the all-time high of the amount of ETFs that we've got in the Arkham. And you can see we've had some maneuverability right now. Nothing really great, but we've seen Grayscale move Bitcoin, but they're always moving Bitcoin to and from certain wallets. But overall, the sentiment in crypto is very, very optimistic. And that's where you've got to be very cautious about it. Going over into Bitcoin's price action, you can see it's consolidating nicely. We've got compression in the moving averages on the higher time frames in the sense where you've got the 5 and 13 EMA consolidating price right now. And this is what I've said. We want to wait to see where this takes us because historically, when Bitcoin does that, you can see right there, when they're consolidating, we're expecting a breakout to the upside. Equally, you've got the same thing happening right here. So we've got to pay close attention to how Bitcoin maneuvers from this point. Just a quick heads up on other assets as well. Solana, we absolutely ripped it apart on Solana over the weekend. So part of the weekly review, I gave out a projection for Ethereum and Solana to see movement to the upside on Saturday. And we managed to exploit that, a wonderful move for the Platinum members. And we saw that price target, $190 getting cleared. Same thing for Ethereum as well. We saw that move. Nice little play. Took a little while with Ethereum, but she just broke out and cleared that 3,750. Now, if you want to get trade setups like this, ladies and gentlemen, there is a discount code right now on the Traders Reality website called All Time High. And if you use that, you get 20% off on the Platinum membership right here. Okay, so that's valid until the end of the month. So take advantage of that. Just use the code All Time High at the checkout and you'll get 20% off your first month, and you'll get similar setups like this Monday all the way through to Saturday. Okay, now considering where we are in relation to the idea of altcoin season, Solana has made an aggressive move up. Now, when we look at the daily time frame for Solana, you can see it's doing great to come away from this range, and it has broken out of a very key important zone. What you want to do is you want to just highlight where you can see previous vector candles that could be coming into action as Solana makes its way towards that point. And the one point that I'm paying attention to is this vector candle block right here. That is a point of interest for me that I would expect Solana to be trying to take at some point this week. Now, remember, you've got the stable coin bill that's been passed, the Genius bill. Everything is all great for crypto. Just try not to FOMO too much into the way crypto is moving. Wait to get involved in retraces. Retrace meaning go on to the 4-hour time frame and say to yourself, when I see Solana consolidate, just look at this behavior here. See how price consolidates sideways. It's just holding out. Highlighted it on the weekly review right there with Solana. Right here, my basis for reasoning to why price was going to go up. Look at here. This here is the bid collection. This is where they're buying at the bid. Go over here, this area. Okay, that's the same area that Ethereum effectively came into and then made the recovery back up. That's what you're looking for with Solana. So when you see these wicks, it's not because there's weakness in the candlestick. It's because they're going down, sweeping the bids, buying everything, returning it straight back up because there is an interest to offer the asset at higher prices. And if prices are going to be offered higher, price is only going to move up. As we head into the open, guys, what you got to be mindful of is there are no news announcements that are being released in today's market. So you might get yourself a quiet day, but usually on a Monday, we do tend to see false moves, either that be to the upside or to the downside. But take into consideration that sentiment across the board with crypto is very, very positive. And any good news that comes out with crypto, it's going to go straight into the charts and people are going to apply the logic of FOMO. The rest of the week is going to be relying on earnings. Of course, Google, Tesla, IBM, and the market, in my opinion, is probably going to be consolidating until Wednesday. No real big moves are going to come until that point because with Google's earnings announcements and Tesla's earnings announcements, that's giving you two marketplaces, the S&P 500, which is where Tesla is listed, and of course, Google, where it's part of the NASDAQ. If Google does really well, given that we've had a great run so far with earnings from companies, especially with banks, then Google is going to give more stimulus to the AI market and investors will plow into Google and continue to plow into other assets like Nvidia, which in turn will then send the stock market higher, which will then encourage the optimism of crypto to keep on marking up. Price projections for Bitcoin are coming in right now, 130,000, 150,000, 250,000 by year end. But just keep your minds focused on when price is going up, that's where you're paying attention to people selling. Equally, when it comes back down, that's going to give you the proof if the guys that are now getting ready to buy Bitcoin on the discount are going to step in and take advantage of that discount so that they can then offer Bitcoin at a higher price. Make sure you're focusing on key moving averages on the daily time frame, like the 5 and 13 EMA. If they're pointing upwards, then you've got yourself momentum to the upside. But if they're trading sideways, you've got consolidation. Now, you can either decide to start loading up in that position when those moving averages are contracting, or you can wait for the first attempt of price to break away from that point, because the logic would then suggest that they're going to sustain the momentum from before and then continue to the upside. Mad love and respect, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you've enjoyed this short video, and I will tune into you all soon. Peace.